Good afternoon. It's almost as it's urging. I'm a Baptist preacher, and so good afternoon. It doesn't always fulfill what I really want to say. But is everybody having a good time today? So first, why don't you give yourselves a hand for really even just being here, right? We live in a world, and we've got UAPB-TV here, and we've been on social media, and we've got a great photographer here, but we live in a society where, when young men and young women of color get together like this, it often gets ignored, right? If you were out somewhere causing a ruckus, there'd be thousands of TV cameras and it'd be all over the news, right? But the work that you're doing here today, building yourselves up, even if the world doesn't recognize it, please be sure that we recognize it. And we appreciate you all being here, taking the time to continue to build yourselves. This RSAM conference is really a conference that's been going on for several years. There's a couple of the staff that are here that have been here several years. There's also some of the students here that have been here for a couple of years. So if you've been to this conference more than one time, just stand up for me so we can recognize you. And I'll start picking people out if they don't stand up. So if you've been to the conference more than once, if you came last year at ULR, you came the year before last at ULR, some of the other students, I know there's some students here that have been here a couple times, so stand up for me and be recognized. There's one in particular I'm looking at that I know has been to the conference several times. Yep, you just stand up. So let's recognize them with a round of applause, because they made this commitment year over year. So in this last session, we thought it was appropriate to bring in the leadership of the bulk of the institutions that have been really supporting this work. And so at one level, what you're looking at is a little bit of history in the making, because it may not be the first time that the leaders of these four institutions have all sat down together, but it is the first time that the current leaders of these four institutions have all sat together. And I know that for true, because one of them just got to be a leader, right? So I know I'm not making that up. It is the first time that these four gentlemen have all sat down together. I'm not going to read their bios because that would take too long. The four gentlemen that you're looking at here are could all four of them could retire on their resumes. I don't know if they could retire on their retirement, but certainly they have all done enough in their careers to make a career already. You have lawyers represented here. You have journalists that are represented here on this panel. You have higher education professionals who have done just about every job you can do on a college campus throughout the course of their college careers. Student services, graduate work, journalism again. They have done just about everything that you can do on a college campus. You have fraternity men. I know we have at least an Alpha, Kappa, and a Q represented. You can figure out which is which. But probably more importantly, you have husbands represented here. Family men with children who have figured out how to both be high capacity, high impact, well-respected professionals, and good fathers and husbands. And so with that, let me introduce to you Jerome Green, Esquire, if you could stand up for me, the 45th president of Florida College. Dr. Lawrence Alexander, the 9th Chancellor of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. Dr. Roderick Smothers, the 14th president of Philander Smith College in Little Rock, Arkansas. And Dr. Joseph Jones, the 14th president of Arkansas Baptist College. Collectively, so they've got these wonderfully long resumes, right? But collectively, on average, their tenure is 2 years. On average, their tenure is 2 years in their positions. And if you know anything about historically black colleges and universities, then you know that all 4 of these guys are just getting started in their work. All 4 of them are just getting started in their work. So the first question, and I might just ask Dr. Alexander, because we're in we're in your place. Talk about what it was like to get here to UAPB as a professional African American man. How'd you get here? What was that journey like?
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here and participate on this panel. Getting here was not easy, and nobody told me it would be easy, but by the grace of God, I am here. It took, I think, to understand how I got here is to understand where I've come from. And I came from a poor existence. I'm a native of New Orleans. I grew up in the largest and probably most notorious housing project in New Orleans. But I had a really forceful mother and grandmother who made sure that I made the right choices with regard to college. And I was the first in my family to graduate from college. Went to undergraduate school in New Orleans, at the University of New Orleans, and then started as a journalist and decided I wanted to go into law and get some expertise in that for my journalism career, so I went to law school and also got a master's degree in journalism. And then I took a turn after journalism school and got into higher education. And the reason I got into higher education was a result of good mentoring. I had an outstanding mentor who I'd met at my undergraduate institution, but when I was an undergrad, he had come on board and he was advising the newspaper, and I was the editor of the paper. And he took an interest in me, and we hit it off. We had a good relationship. He had a very similar track where he had gone from journalism to law school to academia, and so I really admired him. His name is David Womack. I'll mention him. And I started following kind of in his footsteps. He sort of guided me in that path. But for a person who didn't have a lot of advisors around, for a person who didn't have a lot of folks in their ear all the time who had degrees and had that experience, it was just one of those, it was most significant when I look back on it and reflect on it, that I had this person that I could talk to that could provide me with the kind of guidance. You just don't, when you're young, think, or maybe you do think, but you just don't say, well, I'm going to be president of UAPB someday, and you just snap your fingers and you get there. I think there is a path, there is a pattern, and I worked hard and toiled for many years through being an academic, through the tenure and promotion process. I was fortunate enough to get on at a major university, and at the University of Florida, and worked hard to rise through the ranks. And when this opportunity came along at UAPB, I saw in that a mission, real mission work, an opportunity to go back in the sense where it come from, where it all began, and help some first-generation students achieve the dream that I had of being successful, of getting into the career of my choice, of doing some of the things that, of getting out of poverty and helping lift the community.
So, and one of the things you said, you don't just say you want to be a college president and become a college president. And I know that that's true, but I also know, and I want to go to Dr. Smothers for two reasons. One, because I know he's also got Louisiana roots. And I also know that there was a particular point in his life where he said, I want to be a college president. So Dr. Smothers, talk about a little bit about your journey to where you are.
Sure. Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Chancellor, for hosting us today at beautiful campus and beautiful audience. It's an honor to be here. You're right, Corey. There was a moment in my life when I said that I want to be a president. And that moment came for me when I was a sophomore in college. And I had just become a member of the world's greatest fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I met a gentleman by the name of Norman Francis, who was at that time, and just retired about 2 years ago, one of the longest sitting presidents, not just at HBCUs, but in America. And I met him at a national convention. And it was almost for me like meeting someone who ranks very highly up there, and I shook his hand, and he, had a conversation with me. And we stood there and we talked, and I said, I want to be like you. And he said, you can. He said, but here's what you're going to have to do. And it was the advice that he shared with me on the what you're going to have to do to get here. It didn't scare me, but it definitely helped me to set a course that I think ultimately led to that place. Like the Chancellor, I grew up in Vidalia, Louisiana, a small country town in central Louisiana, in a single parent home. My mother raised my two sisters and me with meager resources. She worked as a janitor in the hospital, and she got a certification as a certified nursing assistant, and she sat with the elderly. And it was through that she was able to provide resources for us to live. She emphasized and valued education in our household, although we were very, very poor, and I didn't realize it. Poor to the extent that, there were some evenings, some weekends where my mother would tell us, we're gonna have candlelight dinner. And I did not realize that we were having candlelight dinner because, she couldn't afford to keep the electricity turned on. But in that moment, the food was still good, because she had, taken it to my grandparents' house down the street and cooked it and brought it back. We never knew, but she valued and emphasized education. And I remember as a young boy sitting at the table when I would come in from school and I would be playing around, and she would take those big pencils. They were big and thick. You all may not remember those types of pencils, but they made us use them in grade school. And whenever I would not pay attention, she would pop me on the knuckles, and she would say, boy, get your homework. And so it was that valuing of education that ultimately led to me taking education seriously, graduating from high school with honors, and getting a scholarship to Louisiana State University. I graduated salutatorian of my class. Norman Francis said to me that if you want to become a college president, you're going to have to do three things. He said that you're going to have to get educated, and you're going to have to get well educated. So you're going to have to get the PhD or the terminal degree. And so I put a check mark there. He said, you're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to come up through the ranks. You're going to have to work very hard. And so I put a check mark there. And the final thing that he told me, which is, I think, perhaps was the most valuable for me, was that you're going to have to love this thing called higher education. Because if you want to be a president, being a president means that you're going to absolutely devote and dedicate all of your life and everything about you to doing just that. And I made that decision at that very early age that is what I wanted to do. Although I did not attend an HBCU as an undergraduate, I fell in love with them through my research and studies and by growing up in the environment. And when I got my PhD at the age of 29, I dedicated my research and my career to places like UAPB, Arkansas Baptist, Philander Smith College, and Shorter College. I said to myself and my parents and my children at that time that for the rest of your life, my life, I'm going to work only at historically black colleges and universities. And so this work that started with Norman Francis telling me, here's what you need to do to get there, today for me it's a ministry. I absolutely get up and I go to work every day and I love it. Because it's nowhere else in America can you take an institution like UAPB or like Philander Smith College, which operates sometimes with less resources in every aspect, and they produce outstanding graduates like many of you all are or will be in the years to come. Nowhere else in America. And for me, that is a ministry. And I absolutely love it. And that's how I got there.
Great. So let's check the journey a little bit. So how many of us in here come from a little small town and kind of meager beginnings? All right. How many of us in here have, at this point, a goal that they're trying to reach, whether you want to be a college president or not? Okay. So you should be taking notes, right? We got the pathway here. So let me come all the way back down here to Dr. Jones, who's the newest member of this. What I'm gathering is something of a fraternity in and of itself, right? Because there ain't that many. How many HBCUs do we have? Okay, so it's an esteemed and small club. There's only 105, and some of those are ladies. So there's even a smaller number of males that are heads. So you're the newest member of this HBCU leadership fraternity. 3 things to get there: got to get your education, got to pay your dues, got to love it. How does that jive with how you got to where you are?
Oh, wow. Well, my journey is a little different from these gentlemen. I had no intention on actually even going to college. My dad was in the Army, so I lived some of everywhere. When I was younger, in junior high and high school, I was that trouble kid. Joined the gang when I was 10 years old. Got out of it by the time I was 14. And that was around 1992, April 29th, 1992. And I remember that day because that was they called it the LA riots, but we called it a rebellion. And I was there. And that was a moment when I began to shift in my consciousness to realize that there was something fundamentally wrong in this country. And for those who don't remember the story, there was a gentleman by the name of Rodney King who was beaten by the police. And that day, all 4 police officers were acquitted, and the city erupted. And that was the day I decided to stop gangbanging, primarily. But then I took another stab, and I thought I was going to be a hip-hop producer. So when I was in high school, I was a DJ. And I used to DJ parties and, go around. I had a little rap group called Fortray. We went in, doing concerts and talent shows. And so I thought I was going to do that full time. So my mom gave me a choice when I graduated. She said, you can go to the Army, get out of my house. You go to college, get out of my house. You get a job, get out of my house. Or you can just get out of my house. And back during this time, there was no internet. I just went to the library, literally, and because I graduated from high school in Missouri, and she gave me 2 states that I could go to college in, and that was Missouri and Arkansas, because my parents are from Arkansas. And so I didn't want to go to school in Missouri, so I decided to go to a school in Arkansas. So I went to the library, opened up the book. My older brother went to UAPB. He was graduating the same year I was graduating high school. Did not want to go there because I would have just been his little brother, and I wanted to create my own identity. But read about a small college called Philander Smith College. Never seen the place before, never knew anybody who went there. Applied, got accepted, and my parents dropped me off there, and it literally changed my life. Because I didn't have a really, really good experience in high school. In fact, my first African-American teacher was actually at Philander. My whole entire life, I never had a black teacher. And so there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of conflict I had with teachers in high school. So I decided that I wanted to be a high school social studies teacher. So I majored in elementary education until I took my first class in political science, introduction to political science. And my mentor and friend, and now frat brother, Dr. Raphael Lewis, gave us 5 books to read, and it radically changed my life. Plato the Republic, Prince Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Art of War, Eldridge Cleaver's Soul on Ice, and Black Power by Stokely Carmichael and Charles Hamilton. And I was hooked on political science. So at that moment, I knew that I wanted to be a political scientist. And Dr. Lewis poured into me, he talked into me to going on and pursuing my master's degree. So I thought that, okay, I'll just get my master's degree. So I finished at Philander, and I went to Clark Atlanta University to get my master's and PhD, which I did. And I taught political science for about 10 years. Taught at Clark Atlanta, taught at Johnson C. Smith University, of course, Philander Smith College, and here at UAPB for a year. But it was out of that teaching at Johnson C. Smith that I actually considered to do something different. The former president of Philander Smith College, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, he and I were, I wouldn't call us friends. We were probably more or less, well, I was one of those irate alumni that was asking questions about where he was taking my college. And so we got into a lot of squabbles at alumni conventions. And so one of the older ladies kind of pulled us both together and said, look, you got a point, he got a point, y'all need to sit down and have a conversation. And we did. And so he was trying to turn the college into a social justice college. And so he said, look, I think you can be the person to come and run this institute. I told him no, 3 times, no. Because in Charlotte, I was on the tenure track. I just did a postdoc at Harvard University. I was on the radio, I was writing op-eds, I was doing really, really good. But then he pulled the Philander, I called it the Philander card. Pulled the Philander card, like, just come to the campus and interview. So I said, okay, it's a free trip to Arkansas, and I haven't seen anything like that or whatever. But I got there and I just saw the opportunity, and I said, okay, I'll do it on one condition, that you don't leave. He said, okay. And you know how the story goes, 6 months later, he left. And but it was at Philander that I cut my teeth on administration, and I began to, because I was a cabinet member, and I began to start to see how the college was being run and all the intricacies on it. And I said, you know what, I think that this is something I think I can do as, you know, become a president. I had never considered it before. And then I really began to start to see some of the issues that black colleges were really, really struggling with. And then I realized that there was a gap or a dearth of leaders who want to become college presidents. And not only that, but I was really inspired by Dr. Walter Kimbrough, who became president at the age of 37. So I said, if this brother could do it, surely I can. And so I was a little bit more intentional about my becoming president. So I got into the top training program for presidents. It's called the American Council on Education, ACE Fellows. So for a whole entire year, I trained to be a president. I shadowed Dr. Joel Anderson at UALR for a whole entire semester, followed him everywhere, asked him 1,000,000 questions, all his staff 1,000,000 questions, and I learned everything that I could. And then the opportunity to apply to become a president came early this year, and as they say, the rest is history. So my path kind of went zigzag, up, down, back and forth, but a lot of it, I believe, is been divine driven, and I believe that the work that I'm going to be doing at Arkansas Baptist College is going to be God's work. So, thank you.
So, how good of a rap group was Fortray?
You know, real talk. So, I tell people all the time, I could have been the Kanye before Kanye.
Right.
Like, I was really good at producing. I was mad at my mom for years. I feel like she cut me off in the prime. Because me and Kanye, we're the same age. She's 39, I'm 39. So every time I look at him, I'm like, that could have been me. Like, I really could have, but yeah, I was really good.
We need you. We need you here. We need you here. President Green, Dr. Jones talked about political science and his sort of awakening in that sphere. And then looking at your background, again, you're a person that had done a career's worth of work outside of higher ed. before you got into higher ed. So talk about sort of how you got to where you are and some of the work you did beforehand.
Right. I never thought I'd be a college president. That was not part of my plan. I'm from Pell City, Alabama, which is a rural town about 30 miles outside of Birmingham. My father was a country preacher and a farmer who also worked at the cotton mill at night until it destroyed his health. My mother was a junior high school principal. So I grew up in the 50s and 60s in a rural Alabama town during the height of the civil rights movement, and my house was a civil rights house. Okay? So some of my earliest memories are riding in the back seat of my parents' car on some dusty road in the dark of night going to a voter registration meeting, looking out the back window, being afraid if you saw headlights because it could mean night riders. So God, education, and work were the hallmarks of my upbringing. But I did not want to be a farmer. And of course, this setting where we have mentorship, as I reflect on my life, is so important because my father was a great father, but he was an uneducated man, and therefore, as smart as he may have been and as civic-minded as he may have been, he could not give me guidance along a professional path. When he came along, the black people, they did not have public education for black people in Alabama in all of the schools. So I think he went to school in a church where the people paid, and it went to the 8th grade. And when he got to the 8th grade, that was as far as he could go, but he just kept going back every year hoping that it turned into something else. It never did. There was no opportunity in the town where I grew up, so there were no black role models. I was a grown man before I saw a black lawyer, or became acquainted with a black doctor, or saw anybody black doing anything really significant in the community unless they were a school teacher, a preacher, or an undertaker. If there had been some opportunity for me in my community, I might not be here today because I may have settled for much less, but anything that I wanted to do, I was told that they weren't ready for a black person to do that yet. So I was confused. I didn't go to college my first year because I wanted to play football, and I had been injured in high school in playing football, and my mother would not sign the papers for me to play. And so I started late at a junior 2-year community college there in the community. And then one of my high school teachers saw me and passing by and said, "I need to see you. I have a letter from Miles College where they are going to give a scholarship, and you can win it." I was very good at English and literature, loved English and literature, and I participated. I went and I participated in a contest, an essay contest, and I won the scholarship, the full academic scholarship, 4 years, the Northern English Scholarship to Miles College. And so that's how I ended up getting the beginning of my education, and also had my eyes opened to black role models, to begin to develop some real aspirations and to believe that I could be more than I had seen in my community growing up. So to make a long story short, I did that. I went to Ohio State University and got a master's degree in journalism and public relations, and really got my real professional start right here at UAPB. I graduated from Ohio State and was recruited to UAPB, and I came here and was Director of Public Relations at UAPB, a cabinet level position at the age of 25. I just got lucky, really. And so I went to law school, got married, went to law school, and was blessed with a really great law career, got involved in politics. I represented large corporations, represented a lot of black professionals, was appointed by Governor Clinton to the State Ethics Commission, and then after he became president, was appointed by him to an arbitration panel related to the World Bank. I did business transactions. I did consulting during that time for USDA as a part of my law practice. But something else happened to me. I received a call to ministry, and that caused me to change my focus from making money to helping God's people, and move the focus away from myself to others. And so really it represented a return to the values of my youth, of my upbringing. And I decided to practice law only for the church. And I went back to Alabama and was a visiting professor of government at my alma mater at Miles College, when I got the call from the AME Church that Shorter College was being revitalized, and would I be interested in coming back to take the leadership? And of course, I'm an AME minister, so I'm familiar with the AME Church. I had represented the AME Church in Shorter College here when I was in private practice. I had been involved with government and politics, and they felt that that combination of experience would be what Shorter College needed to be revived. And so I guess probably anybody smart would not have done it, because it would have, because the situation that the college was in was not one that many people thought could be successful. But I'm reminded of A.G. Gaston's saying that if you want to be successful, find the need and fill it. And Shorter College, along with these other institutions, serves a need that is unquenchable for ordinary African Americans to be able to have a high quality, low cost education in a caring and nurturing environment that is not discriminating against them, to give them an opportunity to move from a place of impossibility to a place of possibility. And with that as a mission, we have been successful, and so the rest is history, as you would say, and I'm glad that I made the decision to come and that I made that circle in my journey.
Thank you. So one of the reasons, probably the primary reason I asked them just to talk about themselves for a minute, is so that all of us could realize that all of us are all of us, right? I mean, I think it's certainly college presidents and certainly HBCU presidents, as a part of the tradition in the black community, are held, rightfully so, to high esteem, right? But I wanted them to talk about where they came from, so that we all understood where they came from. Does that make sense to folks? That the places that they came from are no different than the places and circumstance that we come from. And certainly, and this panel isn't about everybody being a college president. The panel is about how we can all begin to work together. And so what's the first step to working together is to knowing each other, right? So thank you all for sharing that. So Mr. Green, you ended talking about sort of revitalization and reimagination. Dr. Smothers, talk a little bit about Philander Smith and where you all are in terms of that. Those two were revitalization and reimagination.
Yeah. Let me see if I can give you the abbreviated version of this. I know Philander Smith College is getting ready to turn 140 years old. So we have been around since 1877. Some of you may or may not know, like Shorter is an AME institution. Arkansas Baptist obviously is Baptist. Philander Smith College is affiliated with the United Methodist Church. And so as we turn 140 years old, we have been rethinking, reimagining a number of things that we do at the college, and not abandoning in any way our historic mission, which is to take young people, not so young people, bring them into the culture and the environment that Dr. Green talked about, educate them, and for Philander we have a focus on social justice and preparing those individuals to go back out into the world and make it better. That is the essence of our mission statement. And as we turn 140 years old and have just completed the first draft of our long-range plan, we realize that that mission statement is so valuable today, perhaps more today than it has ever been, with everything that's going on in America. And so we have captured this new phrase at Philander called Philander Forward, and we're moving the college forward in an aggressive way into the future. We have, for the purpose of this audience, we have also captured what some of you in this audience know as Philander men and Philander women, and the evolution of those Philander men and what it means to be a Philander man in 2016. We have embraced a set of core values that we believe are fundamental to the evolution of Philander men and women. Those core values are simple. They are things with which we grew up, like respect for self, respect for others, respect for Philander, leadership, scholarship, service, and spirituality. And we go about it in a very intentional way to make sure that all Philander men and Philander women embrace those core values. In addition to focusing from a long-range perspective, and in addition to making sure that our Philander men and Philander women are prepared to go out and be the best advocates and ambassadors for that very powerful mission, we have focused intentionally on doing some things for the state of Arkansas and beyond. Earlier, Corey, you alluded to the fact that there are 105 historically black colleges. In Arkansas, a few statistics often frighten me, if you would, and give you the one that frightens me the most. And so if 1,000 African-American students graduated from high school in Arkansas last year, if 1,000 of them graduated, only 500 of them went on to college. Only 500 went on to college. That means that 500 of your friends, perhaps, are out there not continuing their educational pursuits. And I'm of the belief that in a world where African Americans especially are still not on a level playing field in so many fields of endeavor, that education continues to be the one equalizing component that can help us to overcome our circumstances. Look at what it did for us. We all came from very unequal circumstances, but through education and hard work, we did okay. Philander Smith College has focused intentionally on helping the state of Arkansas to move that needle. And so in our education program, for example, we have focused intentionally on training black male teachers to go back out into the communities in Arkansas and help to transform toxic school districts. because we know that in our schools, Dr. Jones alluded to it from his environment, that it wasn't until college that he got his first African-American teacher. Well, believe it or not, there are communities in Arkansas where there are not a significant number of black teachers, and especially black male teachers. So we're focusing specifically on black male teachers who can teach in the STEM disciplines. And so while we sit in the STEM building here at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, at Philander Smith College, we're focusing on that. We're focusing on, at Philander Smith College, as we reimagine the institution's mission, on something else that's very important. So I talked about the educational statistic, but let's switch to unemployment. So if you look at unemployment in the state of Arkansas, the one demographic affected the most by high unemployment rates, guess what? They're individuals who look like the majority of us who are in this room today. And so Philander Smith College is focusing intentionally on getting more minority Arkansans into livable wage paying jobs. But not just into livable wage paying jobs, but into jobs where they can move up the chain of leadership and truly make a difference in the state. And then the final thing that I'll talk about, and then pass the mic, if you, as we call it at Philander, pass the mic, is the fact that, you know, we have a long line of distinguished graduates at Philander Smith College. Joseph Jones is a distinguished graduate from Philander Smith College, who's now president. We have one, and her name is Jocelyn Elders, and she is the first African-American female Surgeon General of the United States of America, appointed by Bill Clinton. A lady that you all, as young men and women, can meet and touch and reach out and experience her in a unique way. When I became president, she called me to her home and she said, "Mr. President, I want to give you some advice." And if you know Jocelyn Elders, she is not shy at all. She said, "Philander Smith College has missed out on a tremendous opportunity." She said, "If you look at healthcare in America, this is the third statistic. We talk about education, unemployment. If you look at healthcare in Arkansas, black folks are in the poorest of health. And yet, those individuals who care about black folks are not the ones providing the care." And so Jocelyn Elders said to me, if Philander Smith College does not tap into this trend, whereas in the next 10 years, the majority of all healthcare in America will be provided by nurses and nurse practitioners. And she said that with affordable care, we have physicians who are just 10 to 15 years into their careers who are now going to get law degrees because they can no longer make money in healthcare. So nurses and nurse practitioners are providing healthcare. She said, if Philander is not training nurses and physical therapists who can take care of aging people, the aging population, she said, you are behind. So we took that argument back to our board, and a year later, the board decided that it would create a School of Allied and Public Health to do just that, and we named it in the honor of Jocelyn Elders. And so we now have a Jocelyn Elders School of Allied and Public Health. And it's interesting, Corey, you said this is the first time the four of us were together. In this capacity, actually it was not, it was last Thursday, right? And so last Thursday, the four of us were at the retreat of the Legislative Black Caucus in Blytheville, Arkansas. And we were summoned there by the chair of the caucus, Senator Linda Chesterfield. And she wanted us to give testimony around the importance of public-private partnerships and what our institutions were doing to help spawn the economy in Arkansas. And we went and we testified. One of the things that I said proudly, and I boast proudly about this fact, Corey, is that, you know, there are almost 5,000 institutions of higher education in America. And historically black colleges and universities represent only 3% of those institutions. But yet, even though we only represent 3%, we produce almost 20% of all black graduates in America. Almost 20%, like 18.5%. I round it up, I like to think. But even more important in those numbers, it's a set of statistics that will really, really impress you. And I like to talk about this because this really ties into that value proposition that all of our institutions must tap into if we're going to survive to continue to carry out these powerful 100-plus-year-old missions. For example, while we know that we produce close to 20% of all black graduates, what is more impressive is that of all black engineers in America, 60% of them graduate from historically black colleges and universities. Of all black physicians in America, 72% of them graduate from historically black colleges and universities. Of all black judges in America, 95% of them graduated from historically black colleges and universities. All black teachers in America, 52% graduate from historically black colleges and universities. And so it is important, as I'm sure you may have found yourselves in some of those statistics, that as we reimagine who we are and our roles that we play in our respective communities, be it in Pine Bluff, be it in West Little Rock, or be it in Little Rock, where Arkansas Baptist and Philander Smith College are, we have a role and we have a responsibility to train an educated citizenry who look like you to take on these roles and these positions in society so that we can continue to uplift our race. And ultimately, that has been the role of the historically black college in America, and I don't care what day comes, we can never abandon that role. And that's what Philander's new vision is all about. It's about moving the college forward and grasping that history while at the same time realizing the importance that we play in shaping the future of America.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
So, I want to come back down to this end. I'll give you this mic, Dr. Jones. You can hold that one down. Hold on that, Dr. Green, because I'm going to come to you next. You know, Baptists, and Shorter in particular, are what I think of as sort of gateways into higher ed for a lot of non-traditional students, for students in some cases that don't even have a high school diploma yet, right? So talk about, I want to go to Dr. Jones first and then Dr. Green. Talk about the importance of being those gateways, and then I know, Dr. Green, you all have some agreements where you could open the door, you know, push them forward, and then shoot them over to Philander, and they finish them off and polish them up and shoot them out into a job. So let's talk about that pipeline. And then, I'll do all of this, and then we're going to have some questions. Dr. Alexander, I want you to talk about this building, why we're here, what UAPB is doing around the information economy, and the things that you all are working on now, because you talked about jobs in the economy, and you mentioned a couple of big fields, and then there's this one around technology and STEM that we all collectively do need to be. So Jones, Green, Alexander, we'll go for questions.
Well, thank you, Corey. Arkansas Baptist College is unique in many kind of ways. For one, we're an institution that offers GED program for those who do not have a high school degree. We offer associate degrees for those who want to have 2-year degrees, and then we offer 4-year degrees. The very core of our mission is providing opportunity and access to underserved communities. And that is a mission that we are continuing to keep building upon. But not only that, but we talked about revitalization and reimagining, you know, our institutions. And as a part of that conversation at Arkansas Baptist College is our community, right? So we have invested literally millions of dollars of making sure that not only our campus, but our surrounding community is safe. That means, you know, tearing down houses, rebuilding houses. One of the things I really want to do is, you know, be in conversation with the neighbors so we can talk about safety, so we can talk and we can plan for the next 10 to 15 years about how this college can be an anchor institution and remain an anchor institution, rather, in Central Little Rock. It is also very, very unique. A lot of people don't know about this about Arkansas Baptist College, but probably over 70% of our students are athletes. And almost equally the same amount are African American male, which creates a very interesting dynamic on campus, and I've been getting a lot of feedback, especially from the brothers. They're like, we need more female, students on campus. But that provides us a very unique opportunity to really focus on African American males and develop them and make sure that if they go on to another institution, that they have the proper education. And if they stay, that we can graduate them so they can go on to graduate school or to find a job. So that's very, very important.
Short of college, I believe may be the last remaining 2-year private liberal arts HBCU in the country. It is unique in that regard. But we think it's very important to have a private 2-year educational opportunity. For one, because access to education is probably the most important thing to the black community other than voting. Education beyond high school is the single greatest indicator of how long a person will live, what kind of health they're going to have, whether they will go to jail or not, whether they will have a family life. Education is, after high school, is the single greatest indicator of those factors. It is important. State institutions, because they are controlled by the legislature, can create standards for admission that exclude the average African American. And I think that UAPB has found some ways maybe around that. But let's face it, the average ACT score for the average African American coming out of high school probably is in the teens, middle teens, 16. And the states all across the country, and I don't know if there's a racial animus or not, but they are rebelling against the idea of paying for remedial education in college, while 50% of people, regardless of race, are graduating from high school in need of remediation. This is a very huge number of people that are in a no man's land in terms of being able to do something with their lives. And the alternative is crime, prison, and death. What all of us do is very important, and for Shorter as a 2-year open admission institution, it is critical. We have agreements with all 3 of these institutions. We have articulation and matriculation agreements with Baptist, UAPB, and Philander, where we try to be a catch-all to get them and save them from a lack of access, educational opportunity. And when we finish with them, they are ready for anybody's institution. But it's our hope that they will go to one of these institutions so that they can continue to receive the kind of nurturing and mentoring that you can't get too much of that. So that's our position.
And then talk about pushing us into this 21st century economy.
Right, and thank you, Corey, for the question, though, on the economy and the 21st century and technology emphasis in this building, and I'm going to get to that next, but I wanted to begin by going back a little bit more historically, because it's all historically tied together, that we are at UAPB an 1890 land grant HBCU. That is what we are, that is how we are identified, and those numbers and words have meaning. 1890, it doesn't mean we were started in 1890. We started in 1873, 143 years ago. But in 1890, we were designated as a land-grant university. That is in the second Morrill Act, because the first Morrill Act that passed was in 1862, and that dealt with universities, but that colleges that excluded African Americans at that time. So Congress had to come back around with the second Morrill Act in 1890, and they granted land grant status to about 18 public colleges at the time, and the purpose was to provide the same thing that we've been talking about with these other institutions, access and opportunity, providing access and opportunity to African Americans to what had already been provided to others in society. And at that time, and the reason I take us back there, because at that time, that's when those institutions were providing skills training. They were providing training for agriculture. They were providing training for technology. And so we like to think of STEM as a very new concept, but STEM is an old concept with a new spin. That is, we didn't call it STEM, but science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are basic and fundamental skills that have been around for a very long time. We've repackaged them and repositioned them, and we are beneficiaries of them in the form of this new building, which opened in 2014 on this campus, to put a stamp, an endorsement, approval on the work that has been done for many years by Dr. Benjamin and others, the previous chancellors, in creating a STEM academy here at the university that takes in students who have a STEM focus and want to major in STEM areas and have a good GPA and so forth, and work with them so that we guarantee their success in advanced studies. Right? And now, we at UAPB have repositioned again to take this matter even higher. That is, we have gone through the strategic planning process, and we have pulled together out of a strategic plan that's very simple. We boiled it down to one word: golden. That's our strategic plan, golden. And it spells G, we're growing enrollment; O, optimizing efficiency; L, we're lifting facilities; D, we're diversifying revenue streams; E, we're enhancing reputation; and N, we're nationalizing visibility in the university. And as part of that strategic planning process, we are looking toward advancing what we have already in technology, in STEM. We have quite a bit of biotechnology and nanotechnology research going on campus that we intend to expand our science footprint into those areas in the next few years. That is, we already have it on campus. There is virus research going on in biotechnology, and other research in nanotechnology that we intend to focus on to elevate those opportunities for our students so that they will be ready. They will be ready in the 21st century to take their places among the other students and be competitive in a global economy. We intend to also, at that time, there was engineering back then. We intend to bring that in as well. Bring in engineering and make that a part of it. Engineering is a part of STEM. So we are working on an engineering program here at UAPB. And we just brought back, just a year ago, a nursing program. Two nursing programs, really, the RN to BSN and the BSN nursing program, so that students have opportunities in areas where there are job opportunities, where there are prospects, where they can advance to graduate studies and continue to be successful. That's where it's taking us into the future.
So let's give these gentlemen a round of applause. Thank them for sharing not just about their institutions, but even more importantly, for sharing about themselves, because we really did want you all to be connected to these. We do have a couple minutes if there are questions in the audience. Any questions in the audience?
How y'all doing? My name is Malcolm Wilson, go by Smooth, I'm here in Georgia. I'm a sophomore at Arkansas Baptist College. I'll be graduating next year with my associates. And in the business. So you guys, my question is, with you guys doing the work that you do at the college, where do you see the college and the student in about 5 more years? Like, what do you see the future of the schools in 5 more years? All looking good, or what's up?
Take a look at the future. Anybody can take that. Take a look into the future.
Well, a lot of it depends on who's president. And
Of the United States, not of the schools.
Is that right? A lot of it depends on who's president of the United States and who that person appoints to be Secretary of Education. Right now, HBCUs are having a real fight as it relates to financial aid. The cost of education is a critical piece in people having an opportunity to get education. So you got access and you got cost. Okay, we provide access. The cost of education right now for the majority of African Americans, it comes from financial aid, from Pell Grants, from student loans, and so forth. Of course, the more expensive the college, then the more the need for other funding is. But let's just take that aside for a moment. We do not live in a post-racial America where African Americans graduate with good degrees, good skills, and are treated equally when they get into the job market. They still face discrimination in hiring, and they face discrimination in what they are paid. Well, right now, we are battling over proposed rules in the Department of Education to create an institutional scorecard, grading card, where institutions have the ability to get financial aid for their students based on the graduation rates of their institution, employment rates of their graduates, how much money their graduates made, comparatively speaking. Now, can you imagine comparing UAPB and Harvard? They're not talking about an HBCU scorecard. They're talking about a scorecard. So these kinds of things are really critical and are serious issues that have to do with what the future of our institutions will be, because the cost of education and being able to finance that is a critical factor. And so if we have difficulty with the public funding aspect of it, then the only other source is private funding, which is something that we probably should talk about and consider.
Thank you. I think we are at time. So let me close with that again. Let's give these gentlemen a round of applause. They may have, I know we got them down here out of their workday, so they may have other things to do, but as they have time, I encourage everybody to come up, shake their hands, get an opportunity to meet them. I think we heard at least 3 times on the panel that life trajectories were determined by just by who they met and who they got encouraged by. We can't pay you, but we do have a little token of our appreciation, a commemorative, oh, they got names on the back, what? Look, a commemorative coin with your name on the back. There's one for Dr. Alexander, for President Green, and one for Dr. Smothers. So again, that's a small token of how much we appreciate you all. So listen, we've had a good day. We want to encourage everybody to come back tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow morning again at 9 o'clock. We'll be right here in this room. We've got a really great morning planned for tomorrow, and then in the afternoon, the campus is going to be taking care of us. We've got the band and the cheerleaders that are going to come out. There's ice cream, social, community fair. We're going to invite some more young people in. So we are excited about day 2 of the conference. From the organizers, any other announcements that I missed? Your evaluation. So on your table, you have an evaluation. If you could please fill that out for us. We just need to know how we're doing and how we can get better at doing what we're doing. And then here's Ken.
I want to say first, thank you so much for the 4 sitting presidents of historically black colleges and universities to be here. Let's give them another round of applause.